Hello fellow students of BBE 2201. My name is Ryan Hughes and today I'll be discussing a topic that was briefly touched upon in one of our lectures, and that is phantom power. Specifically, I'll be going through my own home to see which type of devices are using phantom power and how it is affecting our annual usage of energy and its costs. I chose this topic for two main reasons. The first one is that it wasn't talked about in depth in any of our lectures, and I thought it would be an interesting topic to delve deeper into. And second of all, it is really important. Every household and every individual is using phantom power, and it's not well understood. It's a real way that we could all reduce our energy usage. So what is phantom power? It goes by a couple names such as standby power, peripheral power, vampire power, etc. And it does not have a true, real, concrete definition. Some use the broad definition to encompass any device that's using energy when a human is not benefiting from it, such as when we leave a TV on and walk away. Other people use the more traditional definition. It's narrower, saying that any device that we made the effort to turn off, but yet it still does use power when it's in its off position. Such items are a cable box. That one uses power even when we have turned it off. So there are a ton of common misconceptions that we need to clear out. First off is that everything is using phantom power. That's simply not true. A lot of people run around and unplug everything because of phantom power, but it's only specific devices that use it. A hair dryer right here, when it's switched off, does not use any phantom power, as you can see right there. Devices that are quote-unquote high-tech are generally the ones that use it because they need to keep the core of the device warm or active so that for further rebooting and other processes. So let's get into the do part of my project. So how I measured. I went to the Hennepin County Library, rented this Watts Up Pro meter. It was free, got it for a week. Basically all you do is you plug it into the wall, and then you plug the device into this outlet that's right here on the device, and then on the screen will read the watts that were used. There were a bunch of different functions such as costs or other ones, but I just used the watts for my purposes. So I did take data. I separated it by different rooms just to give a little bit of perspective. First, we'll start off with the office. Right here, I do have a wireless printer. I went as far as I could in turning it off, and it still used 6 watts. This is probably because of the wireless capabilities, but there was no way to turn those off or to turn the device off any further. I also do have just a standard printer. As you can see, that one's using 0 watts. Laptop chargers are, a hot topic when it comes to phantom power. Same with cell phone chargers. Newer devices seem to be not using the phantom power, such as this laptop charger. It's about, maybe 1 or 2 years old, and it was using no watts. Then we can move into my bedroom. TVs are a big culprit. So I have a TV, DVD, VCR combo. That one uses 2.4 watts when it's completely turned off. And the biggest culprit that we'll see, in my cases at least, are the cable boxes. This one's using 9.8 watts even when it's completely turned off, and there's no way to turn it off any further other than unplugging it. I did also go into my garage. This one I was kind of unsure about whether to classify this as phantom power, but in my thought, I meant to turn it off. I'm not using it, so I believe that it shouldn't be using any power. So it is using 4.8 watts 24 hours a day, probably because of the wireless, remote capability of the garage door, but it is using energy all day long. Then we went into the living room. There's another TV that's about using 3.7 watts. Not too interesting in that room. Kitchen, I do have a Culligan machine. I could understand it using power all day if you were using the heating, cooling, and light functions. However, there are switches to turn those off, and I did so, and it still used 5 watts of power, as you can see right here. Not exactly sure what that would be for, maybe for keeping internal pressure or other characteristics, but it is still using power all day long. Then we can look at this TV in the other bedroom. This one's basically brand new. It only uses a half watt. It's plasma. It's all fancy, all that jazz. That can show how things have maybe changed over the years compared to this 4-year-old one that's here using 3.7 watts to a new one that's only using a half watt. We can also look at the age between the VCR and the DVD. The DVD player is pretty new. The VCR is ancient. The DVD is using only 0.6 watts compared to 3.3 for the VCR. Now on to the biggest contributor of all that I found, and that is the cable box. I turn that one off as far as it goes. There's no lights on, and it still uses 35.1 watts. This is a huge contributor, so I really looked into this one further because it was an extreme outlier that I believe. So as you'll see on this slide, as you look right here, there are no lights on. It is completely turned off as much as I can, and it still uses 35.1 watts, as you can see in this picture right here. Yes, I went back and double checked, and it does use that much. That is a huge usage that we could really remove if we were to go through and unplug it. But why? It's mainly for a big convenience factor. I unplugged it all the way and plugged it back in to see what would happen, and you would have to wait, as you see right here, 5 minutes at least. It actually took about 6 or 7 minutes to reboot and get the TV ready to use the cable again. So that is a big convenience factor. So is it really worth waiting the 5 minutes every single time, or would we rather use the phantom power of 35.1 watts 24 hours a day? It's a big thought. So I did break it down all together using different, adding them all together, and it's a total of 66.7 watts that are always going. Here's the equation for cost. Watts times hours used divided by 1,000 will give you the kilowatt hours, and then you multiply that by cost per kilowatt hour. So I did that times this price right here was in the January bill for Excel for a kilowatt hour of electricity, and this amounts to $63.19 per year. To put it in a little perspective, for the total month of January, we used 619 kilowatt hours at my household, and this 584 from kilowatt hours is about equal. So that would say that about 1/12 or 8% of our yearly use of energy is due to this phantom power. And that's a lot that we could really cut out by simply changing our actions. So I also did look into maybe the carbon emissions that are related to this phantom power. According to the EPA.gov, the national average emissions factor for electricity was 1.37 pounds of CO2 per kilowatt hour. So I took my same equation for kilowatt hours right here, times this 1.37 pounds, and found that about 801 pounds of CO2 is emitted per year simply because of phantom power. So what can we really do about this? There's the most basic is to simply unplug your high-tech devices that are using this phantom power. You could go and get a WhatsApp meter and see which devices are using it and then start unplugging those. That would just unplug them from the wall, and obviously they couldn't use any power. A little bit simpler to do, maybe a little bit less work, is to do power strips, and you plug all the devices into the power strip, you click the little switch on there, and then that cuts off all power. There's also a little bit more high-tech remote activated power strips where you mount a switch on the wall that is related to the power strip that would cut off all power there. There are also timers that you could set for maybe an hour, and then after that hour, all power to the devices would go off. And I'll go into a little bit more technology in the next slide. So here is the Belkin remote power strip. It's about $50. This is the power strip where you mount a switch on the wall, and that makes it a little bit easier, less work than reaching down and trying to find the switch to unplug everything. And then this one is a new technology that I just happened to come upon in my research. This one goes a little bit beyond phantom power. It simply has different monitors and settings that when it detects that a person isn't using a device, then it turns off all power that's going to it. So this would include if the child was watching the cartoons and then went to go play a game instead and left the TV on. It would sense that no one is watching it and turn it off. So that goes beyond the traditional definition of phantom power. But it does also reduce phantom power by, after 2 hours of not being used, it cuts off completely all power. They do have it for different devices such as AV devices as TVs, VCRs, DVDs, and then also PC devices. The main goal of this device, according to the company, is to monitor by measuring a wide range of human interaction and electrical parameters, interpret by dynamically analyzing information to determine a specific appliance state and therefore power requirement, and then they also control by turning appliance on or off exactly at the right time to reduce 99% of power wastage. Now I'm not really sure if these data marks that are right down here at the bottom are correct, or they're probably very optimistic numbers, But as you can see, power could really be saved through doing this technology. It's not actually on the market yet, but it is. There is a place on their website where you can show interest, and eventually it probably will be on the market. So thank you for watching. I hope that everyone learned a little bit about phantom power and how it's using our money and our energy, and how we could really reduce it and save a lot of energy in the long run. Thank you.